Welcome to the Maya Jade Museum. I'm Mary Lou Reidinger. I'm the archaeologist who came here 43 years ago to solve an archaeological problem, which is we had 3,000 years of culture from 1500 BC to 1500 AD. We had millions of jade artifacts in museums around the world, and no one knew where the source of the jade was. So I came here to solve the problem, and the way you look for jade is you grab your rock hammer. And I'm sure you've all got your rock hammers at home, and you start hitting rocks. If you hit jade, the harder you hit it, the higher your hammer will bounce. You'll feel it in your wrist. And if you hit something that's not jade, you're going to hear a totally different noise. Your hammer won't bounce. You won't feel it in your wrist. So this rock that's not jade is turning into a pile of dust. In a few more years, there will be nothing there but a pile of dust. The jade has a shelf life of 400 million years. It's going to be here for a very long time. Every time I hit the jade with the hammer, I am destroying the rock hammer because jade has a higher compressive strength than steel. So we have to replace our rock hammers about every year or two. This is one of our retired rock hammers. As you can see, it is not doing it all well. It's hit way too much jade, and it's not going to be hitting much jade in the future. Theoretically, the jade can withstand a direct nuclear attack. I don't know why they won't let me experiment with nuclear weapons, but they don't seem to think it's a good idea. But you can see from the rock hammer probably what it would do to a nuclear weapon. So here we are. We are in Antigua, Guatemala. We are down here on the Caribbean tectonic plate. If we walk 39 miles north, we'll be on the North American tectonic plate, all the way to Alaska and the Arctic Circle. Where the two tectonic plates come together, right here, this is the tectonic plate boundary, and all the jade forms on the tectonic plate boundary through a process called subduction faulting, as the tectonic plates move over and under each other. So when I got here in 1974, I rediscovered the first jade source here, right on the tectonic plate boundary. It's an archaeological site with artifacts all over the surface. All we've done in the last 43 years of jade mining in Guatemala is surface collection. We don't dig for jade. We don't pollute rivers or cut trees. We're very environmentally friendly. So 1974, 1987, 1998, 2000, 2002. Our last 5 jade sources are not on this National Geographic map, which was published in 2003. But when we finish the tour, we're going to go into the showroom. And in the middle of the showroom is a big, huge boulder sitting on a table. That boulder is imperial green jade. Imperial green jade is the world's most valuable gemstone. That's what my husband and I were looking for 33 years. We finally found it. It is our retirement boulder, so be sure and touch it for luck. If you went to Ireland and you didn't kiss the Blarney Stone, why did you bother going to Ireland? So you don't have to kiss my retirement boulder, just touch it. It will make you adequately lucky. So what is jade? Jade is a generic term. It comes from Spanish, piedra de hijada. When the conquistadors arrived in this part of the world in the 1520s, Europeans had never seen jade, and the first jade they saw was brought back from the central area of Guatemala to Europe in the 1540s, and all words for jade in European languages come from Spanish. Piedra de hijada became jade in Italian, jade in German, jade in French, jade in English. It all comes from Spanish. So we have 2 types of jade in the world. We have nephrite jade and jadeite jade. So jade is actually a generic term, and jadeite and nephrite are the correct mineralogical terms. So nephrite is found 20 places in the world. It is never a gemstone. You will never see it in high-end jewelry. Jadeite is a gemstone, and it's really high-end. It's the world's most valuable gemstone. Jadeite is only found and mined commercially 3 places in the world, which is Myanmar, which used to be called Burma, Guatemala, and Russia. They've been mining jadeite in Burma for 290 years. The jadeite mining in Guatemala goes back well over 3,000 years, so we've been at it a lot longer. All pure nephrite and all pure jadeite, regardless of where they're from in the world, all pure jade is white. So I'm wearing some white jade today, strung up with coral and pearls. This is an example of the white jade, which is the way it looks if it pushes up on the tectonic plate boundaries and it only touches white minerals, it stays white. If it touches nickel, it will turn gray-green. If it touches copper, it will turn dark green. If it touches cobalt, it will turn bluish. If it touches manganese and ferrous iron, it will turn black. We have very rare, very valuable black jade in Guatemala. If it touches titanium, iron, and manganese, it will turn purple and pink. And if it touches chromium, it will turn bright green, either apple green or imperial green, and become the world's most valuable gemstone. And take a look right here. My ring. The ring has a black spot on it, and that is chromium. So as it pushed up on the tectonic plate boundaries 165 million years ago, if it touched chromium, it will turn that particular shade of green, which is called apple green. And somebody asked me a few months ago if I had put the black spot there with my Sharpie marker pen. No, Mother Nature put it there about 165 million years ago, and I'm old, but I'm not that old. So what is it that made jade so valuable for thousands of years? It has nothing to do with the color. It has to do with the shelf life of 400 million years. People began to believe that the jade was so hard to crush or melt or carve or destroy that it represented eternity or immortality. And then they began to believe that that quality of eternity or immortality could transfer itself from the jade to the wearer of the jade. So starting about 2,000 years ago in China, they started burying their rulers with jade burial suits to make them immortal. So this is a Han Dynasty emperor on his way to becoming immortal. He has 2,340 plaques of jade covering every square inch of his body. He has jade boots and jade gloves, so he's not taking any chances on reaching immortality. And in the Americas, the same thing was going on for thousands of years. They were burying their rulers with their bodies covered with jade to make them immortal. So this is a replica of a national treasure, Guatemala, the burial mask of Lord Quetzal, who was buried at Tikal in 540 AD. This would have been over his face as his passport to immortality. The originals in the National Museum in Guatemala City, which are beginning to get the picture. The name of the game they were all playing for thousands of years on both sides of the Pacific is whoever had the most jade on their body when they die wins the immortality sweepstakes. And the winner of the immortality sweepstakes, King Pakala Palenque, who was buried in August 681 AD under the Temple of the Inscriptions with 26 pounds of jade on his body. And this is actually a portrait of King Pakal. There are many portraits of him. We know a lot about his life. He lived to be 81 years old. We know who his parents were and who his children were. So congratulations, Pakal. You won the immortality sweepstakes. And for hundreds of years after Pakal's death, there was a speaking tube from the temple up above going 5 stories down into his sarcophagus so that the priests up above could communicate with the immortal Pakal. So that's what was going on for 3,000 years, and then we have the Spanish conquest. The Spaniards arrived. They were looking for gold. They wanted to save souls for Christianity. They found the local people worshiping jade. They declared the worship of jade to be idolatry, worship of false idols, punishable at the time of the Spanish Inquisition by torture and death. So within 20 years of the Spanish conquest, 3,000 years of culture were obliterated, gone. And when I got here 450 years later, I rediscovered the jade sources. The temples had crumbled, the jade sources had been lost, the trails had overgrown. I solved the archaeological problem. I went to the government of Guatemala. I said, I've rediscovered your jade sources. And they said, no, we don't have jade in Guatemala. We would know it if we had jade in Guatemala, and you're just a crazy American archaeologist, and go back to where you came from and don't bother us again. So my feelings were hurt. So my husband and I decided we would restart the jade industry, teach the descendants of the Mayas how to carve jade the way their ancestors had, make replicas of beautiful treasures from museums around the world, and see if we could create a market here in Guatemala. And that was very unfortunate. It did not happen. And for 13 years, everybody laughed at us and called us crazy. And during that time, usually every year, I would go to my hometown of Fort Worth, Texas, and my grandmother, usually after her second cocktail, would ask me, what do you really do in Guatemala? And when my picture came out in National Geographic, my grandmother said, you really do have a jade mine in Guatemala. So thank you, National Geographic, for validating me in the eyes of my grandmother. But also in the eyes of the people of Guatemala, because after that people said, you know, maybe she's not crazy. Maybe this is really jade. Maybe it's really valuable. So that's what I've been doing for the last 43 years. Everything I mine and carve, I sell with a certificate from the Gemological Institute of America, because as you travel around the world, about 99% of everything sold to tourists as jade is not jade. So if you really want to start collecting jade, this is a fun, exciting, adventurous thing to do, but I do have to warn you, it is highly addictive and there is no 12-step program for this. So if you want to start collecting jade, always ask for something in writing. Thank you very much.